Good day everybody and welcome. I'm Andy Collins and this is Game Over. Now this week's show is coming to you from the Science Museum because we're trying to put a bit of education into your life, and also because I am on the run. I am trying to keep out of the way of Mr. Sinister, but apparently I've been a bit of a naughty boy and now he wants to punish me, but that's the life of a secret spy really. Got loads of things coming up, so let's check out the menu and see what's on today's show.
Coming up tonight, Mission Impossible Reviewed. We take a look at the history of the computer. Zelda is almost here. And yet, those girls are back.
So there's the voice of my boss. You wouldn't guess he's only 12 years old and 4'6", would you? Now here at the Science Museum, as well as giving you enjoyment, they want to educate you as well. And they tell us that by recycling glass, plastic and rubber, they can make brand new cars. Female drivers for you. Now talking about recyclement, two guys who will get recycled if the gaming industry ever catch up with them. It's time for the Gaming Assassins.
Capcom just can't leave it alone, can they? 2D beat-em-ups, that's where it's at for them. Vampire Savior is yet another one of them on the Saturn, and yes, it looks exactly the same. This time though, all the characters are original and they're all based on horror folklore. There are some awesome special moves and some cunning sound effects, but is the gameplay really up to much? Anybody who watched the show yesterday will have seen me talk about X-Men vs Street Fighter and how much I abhor 2D beat-em-ups. Vampire Savior is a 2D beat-em-up, so guess what I'm going to say? Yep, I don't quite like it. It is funny though, and it's less confusing than X-Men vs Street Fighter because you've got one character versus one character.
Okay, my other guest reviewer doesn't really like the 2D beat-em-ups, and I don't know why, because this is one of my favourite games. Basically, it's very different from the X-Men Street Fighter games, and that's a totally new set of characters. You get to play as beasts, as vampires, as werewolves, as mummies. If you like your 2D games, then, you know, go out and get this, but if you're a fan of your 3D type games, then you could be quite disappointed.
There's all the normal combos, all the normal moves. Look, you know it better than I do. Let's just say that I would not buy it.
And that's an easy single. Big appeal. Well, the batsman points to his bat, but the umpire says he's out.
International Cricket Captain hopes to do for its sport what Championship Manager 2 did for football. Yep, it's stats overload, with the Wisden World Ratings actually taking part in the proceedings. You get to choose your little cricket blokes and watch them for hours and hours on end.
4 runs.
I am probably the world's biggest Championship Manager 2 fan. There is no doubt. I play it every single night. Or at least I did, until International Cricket Captain came along. Mainly because it breaks the mould. It's not a football management game, it's a cricket management game.
Well, I'm not the biggest fan of these sports strategy games. I mean, my co-reviewer loves them to death, but then he doesn't like the 2D beat-em-up, so I'm in a similar vein to this game. I don't really like it.
There are a few problems with it. The problem with cricket is, obviously, it's a lot slower game than football. And if you want to actually watch highlights and do all the graphic kind of stuff during the game, it could take you years to complete one season. Tactically, International Cricket Captain isn't anywhere near a football management game, mainly because there aren't as many permutations or options. For instance, you can set your field wherever you want, based on each different batsman. You can set the aggression level of either your bowlers or your batsmen, and it's basically then just choosing which player goes up first. There is not much else to it. Unfortunately, International Cricket Captain will never appeal to anybody that isn't interested in cricket, and you really have to be interested in cricket to get anything from the game. Fortunately, I am, so I absolutely loved it. It really is the game that I've got on my CD-ROM drive at the moment, and it is likely to stay there for some considerable time.
Thanks a lot, chaps. We'll see you later on for some more reviews. OK, we've already met this guy once yesterday, and already he's caused huge problems here at the Science Museum. We've had over 3,000 complaints from scientists who say he's sticking his nose in everywhere. It's time to get educated. I'm really sorry about this. Let's go over to Professor History.
See those chaps? They failed. What at? Inventing the first computer. One chap did it. Fellow by the name of Babbage. Thing is, He ran out of Valley money to make it. Here's his story.
This is the fellow, one Charles Babbage. And way back in the 1830s, he had the idea of designing and building the world's first automated calculator. He called this beast the difference engine, a device that could add numbers by combining different sets of mechanical cogs. Babbage had envisioned a machine that could weave together strings of numbers, like a loom. Damned romantic idea. He certainly was a determined fellow, and just about managed to ruin his health and finances by pursuing his mechanical dreams. It all came down to this. When he came to build a demonstration model, the bally thing never worked. Poor show. After a crack at designing a simpler version of this calculator, called the analytical engine, which only got to be built many years later by his son, little Henry Babbage, he returned to his original dream and drew up plans for the difference engine number 2. Sadly, before the machine could be built, Charles Babbage died in 1871, and only his plans were left to carry his reputation into the 20th century. A great pity, seeing his actual theories were perfectly sound.
So there you have it. The poor chap died. Not all bad news, though. Story picked up 120 years later. Find out why tomorrow. Good Lord!
Shut it, he looks nothing like me. You want some, dear? Right, it's time now for part 1 of our special preview feature. I'm not fat, am I?
The N64 has a very tough year ahead, with Sega's Dreamcast snatching the technological crown and the 64DD possibly scrapped altogether. Nintendo are going to have to fulfill a few promises and release some games, particularly this one. This is the latest footage of Zelda, possibly the most eagerly awaited N64 title of them all. As you can see, it looks pretty much completed, so where is it? Zelda represents Nintendo's best chance this year to score a monster hit. It also poses the greatest challenge since Mario for a company determined to update its legendary back catalogue. Japanese release date is said to be imminent. Moving on from the amazingly cute to the just plain nauseating, 12 Tales is the new title of Conker's Quest, the latest 3D platformer from Rare. Is it just me, or are these guys obsessed with big-eyed jumping mammals? Whatever the truth of it, Conker is the latest in a long series of adventuring monkeys, bears, birds, bisons, etc., etc. to grace a Rare game. By the way, he's a squirrel. As expected by now, there are Jurassic Park-style levels, Wild West levels, ocean levels, and yes, the inevitable girlfriend. Looking more like a revamped Donkey Kong Country than anything, 12 Tales is scheduled for a winter release. After Lamborghini 64, USA and everything else, Nintendo really need this game to resuscitate its racing reputation. Early reports suggest that it certainly does. As you can see, the cartoony feel of the original has been preserved, which is a bit of a relief after all this dour, dark future stuff we've had hurled at us for the best part of 2 years. And yes, there is a 4-player split screen. If we're honest, we'd admit the Mario Kart was a bit of a disappointment. This might just redress the balance. What's this? An N64 game with pretensions of sanity? No dancing bears? Anteaters? Interdimensional plumbers? This is a Nintendo feature, isn't it? Oh, okay. This is Ken Griffey Jr. Major League Baseball. It's from Nintendo of America, and it's out this autumn. We'll be looking at some more N64 titles tomorrow. Until then, enjoy the baseball. Are you sure this is a Nintendo game?
Going. the Science Museum, there are so many things that you can interact with. There's tennis, there's football, volleyball, cricket, squash. Me, I'm going for a cup of tea and a sticky bun. Let's check out the main review.
It's finally here, but is it up to much cop? Mission Impossible has finally hit us. Although it can be found in the video vaults of most sell-through video shops, Mission Impossible does try to better GoldenEye. Does it though?
Okay, it's been a very long time coming, but it's finally here. Mission Impossible on the N64. Those of you expecting a GoldenEye beat, it will be very disappointed. Graphically, it's quite poor. But, you know, if you look beyond the graphics, you'll find out that there is great depth in the gameplay.
Unfortunately, the control system is harder to handle than GoldenEye. For instance, it's all done in a behind-the-person perspective, an out-of-body experience, if you like. Very Tomb Raider. But when you actually shoot, it zooms into the eyes of the guy you're controlling to shoot people.
But to get away from this, the game, as has been said previously, has great structure. It's got most of the levels out of the game. You know, you've got sniper levels, you've got levels on top of trains, you've got levels on train stations. I mean, there's a lot of variety there.
Essentially, Mission Impossible is that great game that you want to fit in between GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. It probably isn't as good as either of them, but it is a good stopgap for those who are kind of waiting around, really.
Thank you, guys. Ruthless to the end. Okay, it's time now to join our ladies who are lost in space. So on the space station tips. Now, if you watched last week, I had a bit of trouble communicating with the girls, so I've come here to the Science Museum, to their space department, to borrow some of their high-tech equipment. So, girls, if you can hear me, you're on now. Welcome everybody, I'm Andy Collins and this is Game Over, the show that likes to tell you all you need to know about games. We also like to expand your brain, tell you about science, technology and complicated stuff like that. And to do that we thought we'd come to the Science Museum, the all-knowing brain. Whatever you wanted to know about life, this is the place to be. So before we do that, let's check out what's on today's show.
Coming up tonight, Incoming, reviewed. Mr. History carries on looking at the history of the computer. We take another peek into the Nintendo vaults. They may be lost in space, but they're our tips, girls.
So there's the governor telling us what's on the show today. Now here I am at the Science Museum trying to educate my brain. Now behind me you'll see a framework of a house. This is what the house looks like once you take away the walls, the plaster, the windows, the doors, the satellite receiver, the TV screen where you can see me, Andy Collins, Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock on .TV, channel 58. Anyway, I divulge. Time now to go to two people who haven't got a house. Why? Because they're on the run. Because if the gaming industry ever catch up with them, they are dead meat. They are, of course, the gaming assassins.
Incoming! It's a 3DFX Blaster-thon here. Basically, you fly around gorgeously rendered backdrops, shooting things. Is that really it? Incoming is your typical 3D fly around shooting things affair. There's not a hell of a lot more to it than that. It's fast, it's frenetic, it's a hell of a lot of action for your bucks, but it is samey. It does look gorgeous though. I mean, one of the biggest things about it is 3DFX only.
Basically, it's a 3D shoot 'em up set on lots of varying landscapes. You get to fly over Africa and the Antarctic. You can play as helicopters, as jets, or even weird flying saucer-like contraptions. There's amazing lighting effects when you hit objects, and there's loads of ground targets and stuff to do. Sound effects give reassuring explosions when you blow something up. Only problem with the game is it actually looks better than it plays. It's a shoot 'em up at the end of the day. It can get rather tedious, and I can't see you playing it for more than a couple of hours at a time.
Unfortunately, the gameplay is a bit too just reliant on the frenetic shooting things, And for me, that sort of game just doesn't cut it nowadays. Buster Move Dance and Rhythm is very much like Parappa the Rapper in gameplay style, except this time you don't so much rap as boogie down to the funky beat. It's all a bit weird, really. This is God sent. It is absolutely superb. I'm not quite sure why they got Buster Move at the front of the titles, mainly because it's got nothing to do with the bubble style action of a Buster Move game. What you have to do is you've got your dance fellas or your dance bellesses, and you have to press buttons in time to make them do moves.
There's loads of different, dancers to pick. You've got break dancers, you've got these kind of ballet dancers pulling off the stretches and stuff. You've got funny dancers who are just pulling off these weird moves, rather like Andy the presenter.
It's all about combos. The more different types of combo moves that you pull off, the bigger the dance will be. And eventually you'll be able to unlock secret characters, you'll be able to unlock secret tunes. It's absolutely incredible. It's one of them games that absolutely nobody would discredit you from playing if you were even in the middle of a big club or something, because it is a spectacle.
It's similar to Parappa in that, you have to press buttons corresponding to the action on screen to pull off various moves, but it's different to Parappa in that you're actually pulling off dance moves as opposed to rapping with the beats. Another thing that gets you is each character has their own soundtrack. The hip-hop guy has these crashing beats and little rap going on, and then you've got the kind of Elvis guy with this cheesy 70s music. Basically, it's a good game. It's different. If you're tired of your beat-em-ups and your racing games, then I'd recommend you go out and play it. It is really that good.
I can't highlight it enough. I love this game.
Thank you, guys. We'll catch you for some more honest reviewing later on in the show. It's time now to go over to Professor History for some more facts of life about here in the Science Museum. Only problem is, though, we've been here 3 days and we seem to have lost him. So if you find him, he's about ye big and he's got a funny moustache and a big cap, and he's got an eye for the ladies, could you bring him to main reception, please? Because, I don't want him loose in the public for too long. Anyway, time now for Professor History.
Yesterday we looked at the life and death of Charles Babbage. Today we look at his legacy, the difference engine number 2.
Now, where were we? Oh yes, Charles Babbage, the inventor of the world's first calculator machine, is dead. No, don't cry, it was 120 years ago after all. The story moves forward to 1991, 200 years after Babbage's birth. Here at the Science Museum, plans are afoot to construct the last of Babbage's designs, the difference engine number 2. Teams of researchers delved back into Babbage's notes, and after an awful lot of hard graft, it was completed. They cranked the thing up, and good Lord, it worked! Just exactly how Babbage had planned it. Some young whippersnapper had the idea of setting up a laptop computer to see if the difference engine could compete at crunching numbers. Would you believe it? For the first few calculations, the difference engine was actually ahead, but shortly after, the laptop caught up and went on a massive lead. Never mind, it was still a roaring success, and dear old Charles Babbage was vindicated at last. His work had already inspired computer pioneer Howard Aiken in the 1940s, and now his story was being brought to a whole new generation of bright-eyed boffins. To this day, the Science Museum keeps a record of Babbage's entire struggle to push the world into a technological age.
So there we have it, the complete life of Charles Babbage, the first man of computer, an inspiration to many a young whippersnapper, like my good self. Good Lord!
It's mine, and it soon will be as soon as we get this show out of the way. Right, it's time now for our part 2 of our special preview feature.
Face it, the N64 always had a problem with racing games. It wasn't like this with the SNES. You couldn't find better racing games than Mario Kart and, well, just Mario Kart really. Since then, however, they've had a few problems. Here's a proposed solution. Formula One World Grand Prix. Avoiding the trap that most F1 games fall into, i.e. they're very, very boring, Formula One World Grand Prix blends some very fancy graphics with a bit of sense along the lines of, hey, let's not make this too realistic, shall we? Because real F1 races are about 80 laps long and are very often stunningly monotonous. Good thinking, lads. What is realistic are the visuals, and this game features the kind of modelling that would give Gran Turismo a run for its money. The release of Formula One World Grand Prix might just make up for a few past disasters in the racing department. Speaking of which, wasn't Cruising USA just terrible? Certain things in life are bad ideas before you even embark on them. An awful conversion of an awful arcade game is one of them. As the title suggests, you're driving around the world this time, much to the delight of local residents, obviously, as you burn your way through nature reserves, treasured historical monuments, and a smattering of confused Italian pensioners. There's a choice of cars as usual, from slick roadsters to pickup trucks, and it's out this autumn. Can it be better than Cruising USA? Not difficult, really. That's better, much more civilized. The Japanese are mad about golf. Well, actually the Japanese are just mad, but Nintendo do seem rather keen at the moment to push the little grey baby as the sporting platform of choice, which, let's face it, it's not. Country Club is very much your typical golf game. Nicely digitized little men in their nicely digitized slacks, lots of clubs to choose from, and one of those ubiquitous power dials. Nothing earth-shattering then, but these things are always very popular. It'll be out this autumn. No, sorry, you're not going to get away with it. There is actually an obscure English bylaw that says you have to have at least one basketball game in every preview feature. This one's called NBA Courtside, and I've been studying it for hours, and I can't really find anything radically different from any other game with NBA in the title. Still, if you like your basketball games, this looks set to be a quality title. Out this winter.
Now here at the Science Museum, you can have your very own spaceship that you can fly to the moon. Do you know there's going to be some Muppets that actually believe that? It's actually a virtual reality kit, people. You can drive, you can go on speedboats, motorbikes, you name it. On those machines, you can do it. Anyway, it's time to check out the main review.
Tribal Rage is a, guess what, Command & Conquer clone, except this time it's done with a slightly satirical edge. You get to play lots of bands of roaming tribes, some of which actually like Elvis. It's a bit like Vegas. When I first saw Tribal Rage and I saw the box and I saw the artwork around it and I saw the little cut screens in it, I thought it was going to be hilariously funny. It's got Elvis on the box, and each of the tribes in question are sort of like Trailer Trash and Amazon Queens, and they're all a bit quirky.
Tribal Rage is basically, it's your type of war strategy game where you move around people and blow up targets and mine for minerals and stuff, but we've seen it all before. One interesting feature about the game is its customizability, if there's such a word. Basically, you can mix and match people and weapons. You can have a vehicle and put a certain rocket launcher on it and then have another vehicle and have different weapons. And essentially what it means is you could have limitless amounts of firepower at your disposal. Problem is, all these neat little touches don't detract from the game being not as good as Command & Conquer.
The problem with Tribal Rage, and it seems to be its only problem, is that artificial intelligence in the game absolutely reeks. It sucks. Phooey, it honks. They should have concentrated on the AI, and this game would have been worth the money.
They may be ruthless, but they speak the truth, and that's what we pay them for. Okay, it's part of the show now that I know that you love at home. Yes, it's time to meet the lovely, gorgeous, beautiful women who are in space to give us all the tips. So, ground control to Major Tom, or should I say Helen and Kelly, come in please.
So, did you meet Andy for that date?
Oh, I just couldn't. I told him I'd meet him outside the pictures, and 10 minutes later I was orbiting Uranus. Anyway, Helen, what's the next game?
Oh, it's Gran Turismo.
To get the concept car, enter the American versus British race and place first in the championship. The second way to get the concept car is by earning the gold prize on each of the 7B licence tests and on the final test.